Hello everyone, good morning and good afternoon. A very warm welcome to day 3 of the 3rd International Conference and Pop Festival for Youth-Led Climate Action 2021. We are delighted to have you all join us for one of the biggest youth-led events for climate action. My name is Komal Mittal and I am based in India. The POP family is excited to welcome you to this session which will focus on the Asia, Australia, Europe, and Russia project presentations. In this session, youth from across diverse geographies will present their initiatives in the form of interactive presentations, posters, and workshops. We have our evaluators with us, Dr. Norma Munoz, Dr. Preetha Chatterjee, and Dr. Sujita Suresh. We are very happy to have you all join us for this very meaningful session, and these projects will be evaluated by our projects. Thank you so much for joining in. I will drop all the links and all the social media handles to the chat. So we are now starting with the presentation. We have our first presentation from Cherry Sung, who is from Greener is Cleaner, South Korea. Cherry, you can take the floor, please.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Can you give me the right to share screen?
Yes, Cherry, just a second. Sherry, you're from two accounts. On which one you want to have a hand?
Can you give both of us the right?
Just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so to begin, hello everyone. Thank you for joining in this pop festival. We're delighted to present our organization and project today. And just as a quick introduction, our organization is like an initiative that has started from 2018, and we aim to lead by example to mobilize more youth to take action and voice themselves for a greener and more sustainable future. So basically, we participate in a lot of events and initiate them to inspire and empower other youth around the world to join in this movement. So just to talk about our aim and our vision statement reads, mobilize youth readers to achieve realistic and just solutions to climate change at various levels. And we aim to do this by taking various actions that we will elaborate on later in the presentation. Also, our action plan, like the steps that we take, start from educate, take action, measure impact, and then reflect. This is intentionally in this order because for service action, education should always come first to ensure that a lot of people agree with this common goal. And then after that, we could work together in solidarity towards the goals. So after taking action, we always measure impact and reflect because through our mistakes, through our experience, we get to develop our taking actions and create a greater movement and impact generally. So that's like our action plan. And below are the 3 UN Sustainable Development Goals that we particularly work towards, which are number 12, responsible consumption and production, 13, climate action, and partnering for the global goals. So you may think that number 17 is a kind of irrelevant among the 3 that is shown here because it's not really related directly into the environment. However, we really value the UN SDG number 17 because we believe that solidarity is a key factor in fighting against climate change. So we have color coded our actions in different colors based on the UN SDG goals that we aim to achieve. So with number 12, responsible consumption and production, our motivation for taking action towards this is because resource circulation is not being properly done due to a lack of awareness among civilians and societal situations, including the rise in delivery services and economic instability brought by COVID-19, especially in South Korea, where like all of our members are based on. the COVID-19 brought an economic instability that disrupted the cycle of waste management systems, and their industries are declining in productivity, and the labor workers are going on strikes. Therefore, the waste management and resource circulation is not being done properly. Therefore, as you can see on the right, some actions that we take are developing a resource circulation online platform in cooperation with the Ministry of Environment, and initiating the Return the Unnecessary project as a revolt against unnecessary plastic waste, actually going to beaches and particular areas in the city to clean up and proposing policies for proper waste management. And you'll see later on more about the Return to Unnecessary project, but to give a like deeper understanding about this project, what we have done is collect the plastic straws that are attached in the containers of juice boxes or whatever beverage boxes that a particular corporation sells, and collect them and package them in paper, like in a box, and fax them to the corporation itself so that the authorities in that corporation can receive all that and realize that they're not doing something that's right for the environment. So here are some photos that accompany my explanation. At school, we were able to hold a petition, as you can see on the top right, and also do actual cleanups in the cities. And on the left bottom, you can see me with the Minister of the Environment in South Korea, where we announced the initiation of the resource circulation online platform that I talked about in the beginning, and some other upcycling or recycling projects. Moving on to the UNSG number 13, the reason why we take action for climate action is that climate change is an existential crisis that links with our future. So it means that climate change can actually threaten our lives, although it may not cause human species to go extinct. It causes human species to change their lifestyles to adopt to these disasters and various happenings that are caused by climate change. So many of the current decision makers who can pivot the future environment and the future of youth are the adults, those in the government or the parliament. However, youth do not really have that right to address this issue. Therefore, we try to voice ourselves and get more involved in this policy making to strengthen public support. So some actions that we take are doing Green New Deal civilian action, where we monitor the National Assembly about legislations and laws about the Green New Deal, and do an action for the Green New Deal, which means that we give out speeches or climate strikes about the importance of the Green New Deal being just and actually gone through the legislation in our country. We also make videos, posters, and articles, like weekly ones, and we also host international forums 3 times a year called Ekologi, in which our second edition is going to be hosted in July. We will talk more about that later as well. You can see some of our photos that facilitate our actions, such as climate strikes, climate performances, and hologram action in front of the National Assembly. So now we would like to share a video that we have made based on the climate strike that we have organized in our country 2 years ago, in 2019. So we'll watch that shortly.
We say a word to who is responsible for making this conversation. To prioritize their needs.
Are we really selfish humans who want to let the next generation live on a lifeless planet?
What do you want?
What do we want?
Climate justice!
Do we want it?
Yes! 배출 제로라고 적혀 있고요. 파란방에 석탄 그만이라고 적혀 있어요. 너와 나 노래 행복을 위해 노래하자. 이들을 위해서 노래하자.
If we all join in this activism, we can actually create a change. Our determination and commitment are our potentials.
What do we want? When do we want it?
What do we want? When do we want it? Thank you.
All right, so this was a video that we have created after the 2019 September 25 climate strike for the youth strike for the climate. And as you can see, the atmosphere is really active. A lot of people have engaged, and I was able, like Greener is Cleaner, in cooperation with other Fridays for Future organizations around the world, have been able to congregate around 200 people in this climate strike specifically, but around the world it has been much more than this, of course, like millions. And yeah, and here are more climate performances. And so one thing to highlight is the fact that a lot of these actions seem very drastic, or we use a lot of colors, we use a lot of words, and a lot of like pointing out to name calling, for example. And the purpose of all of this is to emphasize the fact that climate action is really important in our current status quo. And for example, just to point out, the placard that has a red X on it, like in the middle, says climate inequalities and climate destruction. And we call out these big concepts in front of like corporations or authorities because we want to let them know about the potential areas that are being like in topic and in highlight. So yeah, moving on. The last UN SDG that we work for is number 17, partnering for global goals. And as I said, international cooperation is crucial, and global solidarity must be promoted because during uncertain times, such as COVID-19, we should stand up together and renew our ambitions. So the actions that we have taken are participating in conferences like Songdo Model COP, Mock COP26, and a Youth Voice Festa for the Partnership for Global Goals and Green Growth, which is P4G, and giving speeches at international conferences, meeting with members of Congress to discuss the Green New Deal in our country. So by doing this, we actually get involved in the policy making and raise awareness among like certain groups of people through the speeches that we give, through the forums that we participate in. So we hope to raise our voices greater voice among the public and inside the government. Here are more photos to facilitate this action. And as you can see, on the left, you can see the Director General of GGGI and the Executive Director of Green Climate Fund. Both organizations are based in South Korea, and I was honored to meet both of them in the P4G Seoul Summit, in which I also got to meet the president of our country, where they discussed about the Seoul Declaration, which aims to decrease the number of fossil fuel corporations in our country and work more towards solidarity and biodiversity and etc. So lastly, to talk about our future plans in terms of Greener is Cleaner, we have plans for collaborations with Model United Nations to reach greater awareness, because MUNs is a place where delegates, like people in general, come together and discuss solutions to agendas at stake. We also are planning to give more presentation and speaking events, including this pop festival. We have Green New Deal Civilian Action. As you can see in the photos, we have the members of Congress, where I visited them and discussed the shaping of the Green New Deal. And lastly, some more proposals and plugging events for the World Cleanup Day coming up in September. Also, talking about initiatives, Greener is Cleaner is based like nationally, internationally, as well as inside our school. So I attend Chadong International in South Korea, Songdo, and in our school, we made our school like the first eco school of South Korea, which means that we had to work towards the 6 steps for involving, educating, and all those processes that they require. And to do this, we had to change a lot of facilities at our school. For example, we changed paper posters to digital TVs, plastic facilities or like boxes to biodegradable ones, and monitored food waste so that we could address this issue. So more photos. And moving on, the SMART goals that we were able to achieve were negotiating with corporations about the unnecessary returned unnecessary project, and we were able to sustain all these projects throughout the past 3 years. So yeah. Some challenges that we could point out are COVID-19, of course, because it restricts physical contact, but also we were able to fight against it by using online platforms. And throughout our experience and initiatives, we were able to develop empathy as well as communication skills because we had to discuss with different stakeholders to solve the issue of climate change. We also gained global awareness about the common goal of fighting against climate change. And throughout this experience, we got a lot of awards and recognition for our work, which also propelled our Greener is Cleaner initiative and organization to sustain throughout these years. And I will share this link later on because of time restraints. And thank you for listening. But before ending, we would like to ask a member of our team named Daniel to give a summary about like his experience and perspective about what he gained from Greener is Cleaner.
Okay, thank you, Cherry. To start off with an introduction, I'm Daniel in grade 8 at Chadong International. It's an honor to be able to speak to everyone here. And I'm going to be giving like a brief insight as to what I've learned after relatively like quite recently joining GIC. So I first learned about the seriousness of plastic waste in mass landfills and huge plastic islands in the ocean. And the petitions, as Cherry mentioned earlier, we did throughout our school year were really quite just our chances to learn the not so obvious consequences that come from our poor actions as human beings. Like we throw a lot of trash everywhere, and it's generally harmful for the environment. Along with learning about those kinds of problems, we also learned to take action based on like that knowledge, which I personally think is even more important than the information itself. More recently, we discovered ways we can reduce carbon emission in the air, which was a very new concept for me. And Greener is Cleaner encourages others to join in the movement to protect the environment, which is, in my perspective, the best thing about it. So yeah, these are the things that I gained from being a part of Greener is Cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Daniel. I open the floor for the evaluators now. Dr. Norma, would you like to take the first question, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kamal, Cherry, and Daniel. I would like to know how it was for you this last year, very difficult year with the pandemic and the COVID. What did you do? You should wait only working with the social networks. You had some activities in person. What did you do to don't lose, focus, and to don't lose audience, and to don't lose members in your organization, please?
All right, I'll start off. And that's a very good question. Thank you, Dr. Nomal, for the question. To address the issue of COVID-19, we have definitely moved on to online platforms, specifically for the physical climate strikes that we had almost like once or twice a year. We had to change it half online and half offline. However, we were able to still keep the number growing of our organization and the initiatives that we take because we because COVID-19 not just strikes us, but the global world. So people worldwide are adapting to changes and are relying more on social media. Therefore, we took advantage of that concept to use social media more effectively and use marketing strategies. And therefore, we got to have around 200 people online and like 30 people offline, which was still successful. And also about the thing that audience gets loose and not really feel the connection. We of course we struggle with it. However, by hosting conferences like frequently, we had the feedback and evaluation form and always look towards listening to their ideas rather than just directing plans that we have that like traditional ones. So that's how we have adapted to changes.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. Dr. Preetha, would you like to take the question, please?
Yes, thank you, Komal. Thank you, Cherry and Daniel. It was a very nice presentation. So I have one quick question. So how did you start? Where was the beginning of it all?
I also think that this is a question that I will answer better. So the beginning of all of this initiative was actually just a single website. So you may think it's really hard for an initiative to start from a website to a whole organization that runs both national and international in just 3 years. But 3 years ago, I was very sick with eating disorder. And during that time, I looked towards things to distract myself, things where I could rely on and be more passionate about. And that is when I found out environmental issues. And from that, I got interested in these environmental issues happening around the world about IPCC and the UN agreements. So I started writing website articles about that. So that is how greenerscleaner.org still exists. And we write articles weekly. But like after a certain period of time, I felt that just writing websites and informing my school peers about them through my website was not enough. So I got into contact with Greenpeace Korea, which is an international organization, a nonprofit, non-governmental one, and helped prepare a plastic no plastic campaign with them. So that is how I gained more connections with other environmental activists and organizations. So from that, we got more ideas and gathered other youth around my country to be more creative and start initiatives. So now that is, we have sustainably been developing our organization and keeping our common goal and vision. So I think that's how we have come up till now, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Norma.
Dr. Sujita, your question, please. You're not audible to us, Dr. Sujita. No. No, Dr. Sujita. We're not able to hear you. Could you try connect your audio again? Okay, maybe you can drop your question in the chat box and I'll read it out. So Cherry and Daniel, there is a question for you. What is your ambition in this act?
So I can talk about it this time. I think our main ambition is that since we are the generation where we are probably the first to face the consequences of the plastic waste and climate change that we have been facing until this point, I think this is what mainly motivates us because it is our world and it is also a world that our future generations are going to live in. And I think that for us, is what mainly motivates us and what is the main ambition behind our actions for the environment.
Are you satisfied? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Daniel. Okay, so there's also, are you creating awareness about the adverse impact about microplastics to the general public?
I think I can take this one this time. So about creating awareness about the adverse effects of microplastics to general public, we take different ways to solve this issue, like create awareness. One thing could be public speeches. We like not only talk about climate change and the strikes or performances that we initiate, but also about plastic pollution and oil companies, especially in relation to the South Korea and Japan issue about the oil spill that is happening currently. And also we write weekly articles in our website. So that is another way we access the general public. Another way I think is through campaigns through our Instagram account. We have hashtags relay campaigns that we do about ways to reduce plastic consumption in our daily lives. Also, we participate in reporter competition called Youth Environmental Reporters, YRE, I think. Yeah. And recently, I've written an article about the adverse effects of microplastic, and I've received the Excellence Award. So through that, they have shared that article with the public, as it is an international organization and competition. So those are the 4 ways we create awareness about microplastics to general public.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eddie. We can take questions from the audience at the end, and we can now move on to the next presentation. So the next presentation is from Ved on School Initiative on Reducing Carbon Footprint from India. Ved, you can take the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Today, me and my friends will be presenting our initiative, and Abia will begin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Ved. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So back in 2019, a group of students in our school pledged to reduce the school's carbon footprint by 60%. If that sounds like an overambitious goal to you, then trust me, it was. I distinctly remember at one point, everyone in the CFR project, that's the carbon footprint reduction project, was panicking because 60%, that's almost laughably impossible. But then I think at a certain stage, we all realized that we were passionate about this cause and that the least we could do was try. And I think that there's a power in that decision because climate activism, climate action, it's all an uphill battle. There's not always going to be a clear win. And in fact, sometimes I don't think there's a clear path either. But we all have the power to do our best, to try. And that's why every one of us is here anyway. So in order to achieve even a fraction of our goal, we had to first do the mammoth task of calculating how much the carbon footprint of our school really was. In order to do this, we created a calculator that converted assorted values into carbon dioxide equivalent. Additionally, we focused on small-scale solutions which are budget-friendly but can also reduce a considerable amount of carbon footprint, such as water aerators, no disposables in our school, vegetarian Friday, etc. We also were able to organize many awareness initiatives in our school.
Javier, do you want to take over for the calculator?
I need to be made a co-host because it says the screen sharing is disabled.
Okay, just a minute. Go ahead, Bhavya.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I have a short PPT here, which is basically about carbon footprint calculation. And the aim is to, well, one, obviously show the stuff that we've done at CFR in regards to the calculator, and also maybe to inspire everyone who's watching this presentation to take up some action for themselves and gain a much more scientific knowledge of climate change, at least. Let's start by watching this short video clip. It's just about a few seconds. so you can get an idea about what really makes up your carbon footprint, right? We might know about the carbon footprint as a measure of basically our impact on the climate, right? It's scientific, it's mathematical, but a lot of us don't know about where it comes from, or how it can be calculated, right? It's not just about the direct emissions. We burn fuel obviously from cars, and there are fumes that go out in the atmosphere, but it's a lot more involved. So let's be clear.
You may think that by driving your car,
Sorry.
The only carbons you release come from the engine. But no. Consider the carbons that are emitted just to get fuel into the tank. From the energy needed to extract the oil from underground, the pollution caused by transportation and refinement, to the final delivery to your local petrol station. Not to mention the CO2 released by manufacturing your car in the first place. More than you thought, huh?
Yeah, it is definitely more than we think. And actually, even the name carbon footprint, right? It doesn't give the entire picture, because it turns out there are a lot more greenhouse gases that we actually release into the atmosphere that have a far worse impact. There are lots of protocols and lots of sort of standardizations for how to measure these things. But this one famous protocol called the Kyoto Protocol defines the six most important greenhouse gases. If you want some more information about this, you can look up the greenhouse gas protocol, which basically gives a it has a gigantic list, right? So there's carbon dioxide, there's methane, there's nitrous oxide, and a few more, right? And we kind of combine all of these into one unit, and it's called the carbon dioxide equivalent. It's measured usually in kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, or maybe you want to measure it in tons, right? And how we measure it is by using this conversion, essentially called the GWP, which stands for the global warming potential. And the global warming potential, all it does is it allows us to convert between other gases into their equivalent in carbon dioxide. So methane, right? The GWP of methane is 28. And what that means is every kilogram of methane has about the same amount of impact on the climate over 100 years as 28 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And some gases are really horrible. You can look at sulfur hexafluoride, right? 23,500 is the GWP. So luckily, obviously, we don't emit a lot of these into the atmosphere. There are also lots of scopes that we have to consider when calculating the carbon footprint. It's not possible for all of us to consider every single resource we use, because that's honestly where the carbon footprint comes from. If I use a glass of water, if I read a book, if I watch a movie on Netflix, right? So we've kind of defined these scopes where we can restrict our calculations to. And there are mainly three: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, right? I won't get into what these means. It's certainly a great point for you to research on, but it kind of defines the location of your carbon emissions, right? Scope 1 factors are essentially the emissions that come directly from an individual organ or an organization, right? So if you produce electricity, if you have a generator at home, that's scope 1. And we have to kind of restrict our carbon footprint calculations to all of these. And unfortunately, as it is in a lot of statistics and math, there is no actual value. We can always only approximate. So let's actually get into some of the math, right? We hear a lot about climate action. I mean, even from the past presentation, it was quite amazing about raising awareness, about actually conducting on-ground stuff, right? I'm not that type of person. Okay, I can't get my hands dirty. Ved definitely is. I'm much more of a thinker. And so it was my role in the Carbon Footprint Project to take my thinking abilities and sort of turn them into this calculator, right? And I could do that scientifically through math. So if you're someone who enjoys mathematics, okay, if you're someone who enjoys computer science, carbon footprint calculation is definitely for you. Because I'll tell you one thing. When this project started last year in March, right, I didn't really care for the climate as much. Sure, I was a good citizen. I would, segregate my plastics. I would reduce my water and electricity consumption. But I didn't have a drive inside of me, and so I contributed in the way that I could through my passion, which is math and computer science, right? And it's the same for everyone, for whoever's watching this, because there are lots of different fields like geography, like computational geometry, like trigonometry. Basically, every academic field is involved in climate change in some or the other way. So even if you're not passionate about the climate, you can still help create an impact. And just to give you a very abstract overview about how carbon footprint calculation works, this is basically the equation I have for you. You can ignore the daunting looking E symbol here. It's called sigma. But what this is essentially is it's a sum of all the quantity of resources that you use multiplied by the conversion factor. You have this equation on the top here, xc plus xc plus xc plus xc. Essentially what this is you figure out how much of a resource you use. Let's talk about fuel consumption, right? I would use now I don't buy my own diesel. My parents do that for me, so it's probably a really bad estimate. But let's say 100 liters of diesel every single month, right? And we know from the conversion factor that every liter of diesel is, when burned, is about 2.64 kilograms of carbon dioxide, right? You can multiply together, and we get 264 kilograms of carbon dioxide from diesel in that month. Now, the really difficult part in carbon footprint calculation comes from, well, actually figuring out how much of a resource you use. Right? Diesel and petrol is easy enough. But if you want to figure out how much carbon footprint you have from flights, well, you need to figure out, well, the fuel used by that flight and the distance the flight needs to travel. So, yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into this. And you could definitely try it out for yourself if this seems interesting. Here is an example of like a snapshot from the school's carbon footprint calculator, the one that we made. This is all dummy data because I wasn't actually allowed to share the actual data. But essentially, we have this is for electricity. So we have the amount of electricity consumed, we have the conversion factor for electricity, and we have the carbon footprint that we get out of it. This is, again, a very abstracted example. It's a lot more involved than this, but because this is like an introductory workshop almost, it's a great way to start. This was the first version of the calculator, and for the past month, we've been working on a second version whose aim is essentially to be, well, the biggest and the most incredible carbon footprint calculator on the internet, right? And for it, we're writing a research paper. If anyone is interested in reading it, we would be more than happy to share it with you. It contains details about everything that we're doing. It's highly scientific, so even if you would like to sort of give us some feedback on it, we would really appreciate that. Well, the thing that I come to last before we can move on to the next section is calculating your own carbon footprint. This is honestly the best way you can become climate minded, right? There are lots of different factors that you can consider for the carbon footprint calculation, and there's a lot of research that you can do. And here, I'm basically just going to give you a 4-step process for how you can go about this, right? There's figuring out stuff, there's creating the calculator, there's gathering the data, and there's finally entering the data into your into the calculator, right? The first step is to figure stuff out. When you're calculating the carbon footprint, you need to know how you're going to do it, right? We have given an example of a few books here. Well, what do we need for the carbon footprint calculation? The quantity, which is the mass of the book used, and whether the book is hardcover or paperback. And once you're done with that, you can essentially multiply it by the conversion factor to get the carbon footprint, right? The next thing is you actually create the factor. Here is a very simple Excel document that we created, which basically shows the books, the type of book, and the carbon footprint calculation from that. And there was a little bit of research involved in actually figuring out, what the conversion factor is. So we read a few research papers. We found out where the carbon footprint goes into this, and essentially you have to do this for every single factor, right? It becomes really interesting because of the variety of factors, there's a lot of different fields that you end up tackling. But anyways, then the next step is to actually gather the data. You measure, in this case, the mass of the books, the number of books and everything, and you can enter it into your calculator and you will get a final carbon footprint value. And that is basically about it. We can move on to the next section. If you have any questions, do make sure to ask us at the end.
Okay, so moving forward, we want to do a small activity because at the end of the day, this is an interactive workshop. So Rena, do you want to go ahead with that part?
Yes, thank you, Ved. So now that everyone's been loaded up with information, there are 3 activities that we would like you all to do. So I'm going to paste it in the chat so everyone can see it. So the first one is to pick a solution to stop climate change and to write a haiku based on it. You can choose the first one, or you can choose between the 2 other options, which is to draw a picture based on your exploration of climate change based on the previous presentations in this segment, or you could write a short rap or song lyrics based on the negative effects of climate change. So this you could probably do under 7 or 8 minutes. And you can just show whatever you finished by switching on your camera over here.
Yeah. So this is the fun activity. If you want, you can also put it up in the chat box. You can upload it. So we'll give you time for this. Rena, do you want to answer the question in the chat?
Yeah, so it's like a 3-line poem. You can do 6 lines as well. The first one would have 5 syllables, the second line would have 7 syllables, and the third one would have 5 syllables. But if you prefer, you can write an ordinary poem as well.
Someone in the chat is asking what is a haiku, if I may ask. So if any of you want to respond to that.
Yes, so it's a normal poem. So it consists of 3 lines, and you can write another following 3 lines. The first line consists of 5 syllables. The second line consists of 7, and the third one consists of 5. However, you can choose to do a different format of poem if that's preferable.
Kamal? Priyanka, they are ready with the presentation?
I think they've given a few minutes, Dr. Norma, for the participants to answer.
Yeah.
How many more minutes would you want to give Raina and Ved?
We were thinking we'll
7
wait till
minutes.
3. Yeah, we'll wait till about 3 o'clock and then move on to the next section.
Okay.
You mean 2 o'clock?
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
My bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Norma, just 3 more minutes and then we can.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
So a few of our team members have put up examples just for you to get a reference on what kind of lines we're thinking on. So yeah.
We have 2 more responses, Ved, if you want to meanwhile read it out.
Yeah, I think it's a nice poem, Cherry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your haiku. It's pretty good. Okay, so since this is live, I think it would be better if we read them out. So the one of them is The world here is polluted. We are making it toxic to future generations. It's a call to pop. Thank you for the haiku. It's pretty good. The other one is walk your way on foot. Look at what nature has put. Emit less carbon. And these samplers are, why don't we just stop eating all this damn meat? It pollutes a lot. And more carbon in air, more pollution in water. We must stop this now. Okay, then someone's written song lyrics saying, well, it is climate change, something we can't risk to forget, even if it seems out of range. We need to take a step and engage. Thank you for those. They're also very good.
So since it's 2, I think we can move on and we can keep getting submissions if you're still working on your this thing, and we'll be happy to read it. So the next thing we want to talk about is what kind of solutions did we implement? So a lot of the solutions, so because of the COVID situation, a lot of our solutions are still in the planning and implementation phase. We also had a lot of problem because of financial issues. And the thing with climate solutions is that they're not cheap. Things like solar panels are extremely expensive. Even though they have an effective ROI, it does take time to implement these solutions. And so we're still in the implementation phase. However, I will talk about some of our ideas, and these are things that you can implement in your homes as well. So one of the major solutions that we did look at was water aerators. And these are essentially taps with less number of nozzles or less number of outlets. And we did an experiment ourselves, and we saw that a normal tap leaves about 3 liters of water in 20 seconds, whereas an aerator only leaves around 1.4 to 1.5 liters of water. And that showed us that there is a stark difference between them, and we can reduce our water usage by a lot, which inevitably reduces our carbon footprint. Other solutions that we looked at was solar panels. And solar panels, in our last carbon audit of our school, electricity was about 36% of our carbon footprint in total. And that was the largest factor that we had. So that's why we were also looking at solar panels, and we will have solar panels in our school in a few months. And essentially why solar panels are good is because they have no carbon footprint in the working. And because they don't, they also offset their carbon footprint from the manufacturing when compared with other electricity otherwise. So solutions like these are simple but effective, and solar panels are also something that you can put up in your own house or in your own building over a particular time. Other solutions, like Abia mentioned in the beginning of the session, there is vegetarian Fridays. And after electricity, food is one of the major factors that contributes to carbon footprint. So even if you don't go vegan completely, vegetarian meal is an interesting option. The last solution I would like to mention is using a software called Brave. That is essentially a replacement to Google Chrome. And what it does is that it completely gets rid of your ads. Now, why that reduces your carbon footprint is because each ad has some amount of data that it uses. And to be able to generate that data, servers need to be cooled down. And that requires energy, therefore a carbon footprint. So by using Brave, you're not only reducing your usage of your laptop because less time, but also because you're reducing your carbon footprint. And it works similar to Chrome. So that's a solution all of us can make a change right now. And all of us in the team have done that for the past about 2 months, if I'm not wrong. So those are some solutions that we are working on. And once the COVID pandemic eases, we will be implementing more of these to reach our eventual goal. Next, do we want to start the conclusion of the session, Mihir and Rena?
Yes, thank you. So now we just want you people to also have your understanding of CFR and its solutions, so to implement it in your daily lives. So we can't force you towards working towards stopping climate change, and neither can we pressure you to change your lives around by not using electricity at all. However, just a few efficient and thriving tasks is what we're here to hope you'll practice to reduce your own carbon footprint, whether it's not by using the lights unless required, or having a few vegetarian days to eat fresh vegetables instead of meat, as Ved mentioned, or even starting fun experiments of composting your food waste that would make a difference. And of course, please spread this message to all your friends, family, and known ones so they do the same so that we can all live in a better world instead of just surviving. So do attempt your own unique ways of reducing your carbon footprint. And we, of course, are doing the same. Over to you, Mihir.
The truth is that sometimes we really care for the environment, but we feel like we can't really make a change. And I was very guilty of this just a few months back before I joined this project. Because there's always news about big laws like the Green New Deal and big actions, and it feels like the burden is on the governments, on the higher powers to save us. But as you've seen in our presentation, the actions we take can change so much. We can save hundreds of kilograms of CO2 if we put effort into it, and we can inspire change in others and the community around us. I won't say that these are simple actions because I know that in order to be more eco-friendly, you actually do have to put effort and time into it initially. But everything we do, every effort we take, it has an impact. It saves a life. It sometimes saves many lives. It can save a species. It can save a place. It can save an ecosystem. It can save our planet, and it can save us. Thank you. And now we are open to any questions.
Thank you, Ved and team. Dr. Preetha, would you like to take the first question, please?
Thank you, Komal. Thank you, Ved and your team. So I have a couple of questions. The first question is for, I think, Bhavya, you presented on the carbon calculation part, footprint calculation part. Yeah, so my question is on carbon footprint calculation. So you have actually developed a calculator, or was it just a baseline example that you gave?
So we did develop a calculator. We considered, I think, 8 or 9 factors from the PPT that I'd shown. And it was on Google Sheets. The reason I didn't show it actually in the presentation is because since I started working on the new one, I don't like that one anymore. It's simply because over the past year, I've learned so much about carbon footprint calculation as well, that the scope of the second version of
Bhavi. So what was there in the previous calculator which you did not like, and what is there new in your new calculator?
So I mean, for the last month, I've just been working on flights, so I guess it's only fair to compare those two. We were using this methodology by the ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, to calculate the carbon footprint. And so I mean, the way that flight calculation works, right, is we essentially enter in the route. So let's say Pune to Bangalore, right, and then we calculate the distance that the flight has to travel, and based on that distance, we can calculate how much fuel the flight consumes, right. It's hard to describe without getting sort of technical about the different scopes, but essentially the idea is with the new calculator, we are looking to make it generalizable. So it's not just for our school. Anyone from across the world can use it, including organizations as well as individuals. It's also about the sort of depth into the calculation that we go into, right? Considering when you talk about flight, right? Fuel consumption isn't it's not singularly the thing that affects the carbon footprint, right? You have things like the freight factor or the passenger factors, which essentially determine on average how much mail is in the flight and how much sort of the passenger attendance is, right? You have things like calculating the distance between 2 points. The Earth isn't a sphere, but we were using this formula called the Great Circle Distance before, which assumed it was. So the calculations were slightly off because of that. This time we're using this more complex algorithm called Vincenti's inverse, basically, and it assumes that the sphere is slightly squished, which is more like how the Earth is. One thing that we've been working on for the past 5 days, actually, quite a bit, is developing an algorithm for routes that don't exist. So let's say, hypothetically, I wanted to calculate the carbon footprint from Pune to London Heathrow, right? We can't do that because there is no flight from Pune to London Heathrow that is in our database, right? So we have to figure out, well, how else can we calculate the carbon footprint? How else do we get what flight flies from Pune to London Heathrow hypothetically, right? And the idea for that is basically, well, we find the airport that's closest to Pune, which would be Bombay, and there is a flight from Bombay to Heathrow, right? Algorithms for that, because you can't check all the thousands of airports in the world. You have to develop some that are more efficient than others. That's where the computational geometry comes in. So yeah.
Okay, Bhavya, I don't have any more questions. Over to you, Dr. Norma.
Thank you, Prita. Well, first of all, congratulations for your project. It's really a good one. And I would like to go also through the calculator you have. And I think that more easier you make it for people will be better because people need to understand normal people, you know what I mean? If it's not my field, I need to know that every activity that I have has a footprint, carbon footprint. And that is, I think, the main point of your calculator. Like you said, now is easier, now is more simple. But if you go to the process that you got and now you are showing us is really complex what you did, of course, but you are thinking about that. And I would like to know, and if it's possible, to make a kind of to spread the message, you need to do it in a simple words, in a very easy way to make a civil society to understand that if they open the water, if they use electricity, if they use the computer, if they use the car, if they walk, even they walk the way that you do it, and so has a print, a footprint, carbon footprint, then that should be something that you need to think about. Thank you so much for your project. And the other thing that I wanted to know is, uh, I understood that you started in 2019. What was for you the 2020? What was, you were developing something, you were amplifying your voices, you were working in the social media. What did you do in 2020 in order to strengthen your project? Thank you. If you can give me here, Raina, Bobby, and Ved, thank you so much for this project.
Thank you. Does anyone want to take this question?
Yeah,
So I think the first question, Bhavya, you can answer about the personalized calculator. You can elaborate on that. For the
That's
second, yeah, for the second part of your question, so 2020, we started the project, we launched the project in March. And for the next 2 months, the focus was completely on the calculator itself, because we couldn't get to any of the solutions unless we knew what we're trying to solve. And then on, from about June to September, we worked on a variety of solutions. And we have a whole list of that where we worked on rainwater harvesting, biogas plants, compost systems, the solar panels, and things like that. So that was until about September. And then till December, we worked on prioritizing our solutions as to what needs to be done and what we can change. And after that, we moved our focus to advocacy and spreading our project, because our school said that now that you've given us the solutions, we will take over the implementation. So now we are focused to a better calculator and awareness. Bhavya, do you want to expand on the personal calculator?
So yeah, we did consider actually, because we were thinking, we don't want to just let this be limited to our school. And I think the best way to spread knowledge, scientific knowledge about carbon, about climate change, is through the calculator. So one of the decisions that we took, I think I would still call it the hardest, was the shift from using Google Sheets and using MS Excel to using a programming language called Python. This is, I mean, obviously, this is all for the back end, but what this allows us to do, and what we've really highly considered, is making a personalized calculator for at least all the staff members and the students at our school, and then making some sort of application, maybe on the internet, that people from across the world could access, making it accessible to the general public, and also writing the research paper to making it accessible to people who want to go, into it much more scientifically. Let's see, maybe over the next few months we can develop an application using the power of the programming language to send the message across. And I think, yeah, it's a very good point, so we'll definitely consider that, Dr. Norman.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bobby. It's a wonderful idea and will help a lot, I'm sure. Thank you.
Dr. Sujita, your question, please.
Okay, hope you all could hear me now.
Yes, Dr. Sujita.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to ask sorry for entering a little bit late, but I was hearing everything laid by. Thank you so much. To the group who have presented now, first I would like to congratulate you, because at this stage you're just trying to find solutions for carbon footprint and all those things that impact climate. Very good initiative. Congratulations to everybody of you. And my first question would be, what made you to initiate this program? And does your school, what did the school tell you when you presented this project?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, if
Abia.
I'm not wrong, yeah. Actually, if I'm not wrong, I think that Ved was exploring some ideas with our principal at the time. And then after that, we were able to organize this thing called um, the climate monologues, which was basically during our annual day. There were a bunch of people who stood on the stage and they were talking about the climate and the problems and the fact that this is a very real issue that's gonna be affecting our future. And then from then on, some people, obviously everyone who was a part of the climate monologue joined the CFR. And then also other people who were interested because of listening to the climate monologue joined us, and we were able to take the solutions forward from there.
Add on to that, for me it was slightly different, right?
Mhm.
I was probably in some sort of class, and Wade came to me telling me that he was working on a carbon footprint calculator. So I looked at it and I was like, this is absolutely terrible. What are you doing? Uh, and so he asked me to come onto the project, and so we started our work from there.
Okay. Okay. But now hearing you do all these things, actually, we all feel proud, and it's a really very good actor. Congratulations for that. So, when you talk about carbon footprint and how to reduce a carbon footprint, I would like to ask, at this age, as an individual, what are you doing to reduce the carbon footprint in your
So
daily?
can I take this one?
Yeah,
So
Reva, go.
for me, before the climate monologues, before I was completely non-vegetarian, I would not be able to live without like eating meat. But during the pandemic's times, if I'm being honest, I cut down my use of eating meat. And also, what would happen later in the future would be to have artificial meat because a lot of people are developing that. But now, because we don't have as much access to that, also because of the pandemic, it's good to like ration your meat and not eat as much so that you're reducing your carbon footprint in that way. And as somebody mentioned during the presentation, even online, because we use Google Chrome a lot, but that adds up a lot to our carbon footprint. So switching to platforms like Brave, which reduces our carbon footprint and is a better software to use, which is equally effective, is another way we are reducing our carbon footprint as a team and people. And also just not using electricity when you don't need it, as a lot of people switch on the lights and use plastic bottles. So also not using plastic bottles. So here are some of the things that we've done.
Also, if anyone is interested and if you use Brave, it shows you how much bandwidth you've saved, right? For me, it's about 5 gigabytes. You can multiply the 5 gigabytes by 11 grams per megabyte, which is the carbon footprint from data, and you can basically see how much you've saved. If you so for us, it's for me at least personally, it's about 60 kilograms so far.
And just like Bhavya, all of us have switched to Brave, and there are about 5 other people in our team. So about 11, 12 of us have all switched to Brave as a team action. And we've also started segregating our waste and things like that also.
I think we also need to mention that we've also had loads of arguments with our parents to get the entire family to take action.
Yes, I do agree with that. Okay, then do you prepare any posters or something like that to publish in your school? Like in India, I know we have notice boards for all classes. So you do something like that, activities, so that all other students also can know about this program, or to inspire other students to join this act of reducing carbon footprint. You do some posters, interesting posters.
Yeah, Mihir, you want to talk about awareness?
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to awareness in our school, maybe if we had physical school, we would be doing things like posters. But instead of that, we focused on many different things. So for example, the biggest thing we're doing is we're setting up a website for all of the climate projects which our school is undertaking. So I will have details about things like switching to Brave. It'll have like a sort of leaderboard showing how much showing how much carbon our school has saved because of that. And we're also focusing on some slightly less common solutions. So one of the things we're doing is we're working towards introducing an alternate uniform, which Indus students can wear if they're working on climate projects, which will sort of help spread the word and it will help get people interested in these projects, which is one of the things which we want to do. The last thing which we're aiming at is to set up a webcast, which is going to be sort of like a bi-monthly show where we talk about things like climate change and nature appreciation, but we present it in more of a fun way. So a bit like a quiz show or a game show or something like that. But yeah, that's essentially what we're doing. The aim is to make students care about the climate without having to stuff it down their throats, because what our school does now is they sort of try to shoehorn it into everything, whereas we're aiming to introduce it much more subtly, which we think will have a much more lasting and widespread change. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, and all the best for your future work also. Congratulations to the whole team.
Thank you.
Moving forward, we have our next presentation, which is spreadsheet to strategy from the Pathway School. Reva Sharma, Aman Gandhi, Vanshika, Kanodia, and Krish will be presenting that. Over to you guys.
So before starting, I'm just putting a link to a document which you guys should open. So there are a few links we'll be referring to in that document. All right, let's start. Are you good to go?
Yeah.
All right. Tragedy to strategy, reducing energy consumption by the Power Rangers.
Greetings, everyone. Why are you here today? Is it another boring talk about the environment? Sharing solutions which are impossible to implement? A conversation with no outcome? Or just participating to win the awards? Actually, no, I don't think so. We are here as a group who feels responsible towards the environment and wants to share genuine solutions regarding the reducing consumption. Since the day our team interacted with the members of the pop movement, it fueled our motivation to help the environment. Like I remember, we were just a bunch of environmental advocates, but during that very session, we were inspired to implement some changes, and here we are today.
So let us start off by asking you a question. What are the qualities of a team? We would love to have your answers in the chat below right now. Trust, inclusive collaboration, absolutely great ideas. The reason we want to emphasize the significance of teamwork and its importance is related with the execution of this initiative and to receive the optimum results for the same. We humans need to work together as one unit to heal the destruction caused against the environment.
So people won't implement change because some solutions offered are just not something any common individual can do. But by offering simple solutions, we all can be sure that we can contribute to bring a change for real. Simple is that one very incentive we're giving to people and actually think about these issues and do something about it.
So As you can see, the energy consumption levels in the following graph depict the gravity of the situation. The graph's trend has been almost uniform since the 1990 to the 20th century, but from the 2002 to 2010, the trend has increased significantly and has been growing since.
While today we know the problem, we need to accelerate the action. We need to act. We need to know we know what energy consumption is, but we need to do so much more. Please listen to our solutions and let's implement them together.
So, what if we make a strategy now that we must fulfill? Let us start by understanding what we learn here today, actually implement those in our lives, and pave the way forward by sharing these solutions within your community. Now, to begin with, another problem ignored. How many mails are lying in your inbox? 100, 200, 500, more than 1,000. Well, we have mails everywhere, but we never realize what these unread and unnecessary mails contribute to problems like carbon footprint. zero point 0.3 grams of CO2 is what one mail releases. Did not know before. Well, we can definitely start by estimating the impact we alone are creating because of emails. So I'd request everybody to open the link, leave me alone, as shared in the document. I'll just wait for a couple of seconds until you guys open it. Just give me a thumbs up if you have. All right. So if you scroll down, you'll see an adjusting bar to select the number of mails you receive every day. So just an estimate that you think you might receive, just put it there. Well, surely a self-reflection activity. And as simple as it sounds, we just need to do a few simple things. Let us look at those 6 basic steps, just 6 that we can follow right away. So, firstly, clear out all the unneeded mails and you can select them at once and delete them. Second, the largest of attachments we do not require, delete. Third, after you delete those mails, they automatically go in the bin. So make sure you delete it from there too. And spam, of course. Fourth, unsubscribe. I personally was getting 100 college mails and I never knew that I had one subscribed to it. Just going to one of those mails and selecting the option to unsubscribe for what we do not need would not take us more than a minute, would it? Fifth, check your iCloud and I assure you there'll be so many things we do not require. Lastly, follow these steps. Not just today or tomorrow, but do it every month, every week. And that is definitely what we owe to our Mother Earth. Now, talking of simple solutions, what about Ecosia, a green search engine? If you did not know about this already, by around 45 searches that the users of Ecosia make, they plant a tree. If you open the link from the document, you can see how many trees they've already planted. And just by supporting and using this search engine, we can contribute. So what can we do? Maybe make Ecosia a default search engine for twice a week, thrice a week, whatever is comfortable, and use it throughout the day. You will not realize how many trees will be planted, and you'll be proud that you're helping. Now, coming back to the qualities of a team. If one member from the whole team is helping them win, there's no chance they will. What is a team if there's no team support? We humans are supposed to be a team, and we need to work together if we need a bigger impact. Well, let us do some basic maths. I know we hate it, but it's not going to be difficult. So, deleting mails, $0. It's again not going to cost us anything. So if we add them, it is 0 plus 0, totally free. And who does not like something which is free? So let us not make any excuses and step away from it this time. Now, we're not coming here without actually doing these things. In our school pathways, we've already conducted meetings and sessions with students of all grades and made them aware about these simple solutions they did not even know existed. So we have taken the first step. It is your chance now.
So, While discussing the implementation of renewable energy sources in this growing yet changing world, many of us have come across biofuels, but not many have questioned its existence. More specifically, the implementation of biofuels is mostly out of question. Why? Because we are not fully aware as individuals. Since the demand of a product only increases when the consumer finds it a viable option, and in our situation, we are running out of options. So that brings me to the fossil fuels, which are about 52.8 years worth left. And then there won't be many options left. And the consumption of energy is rapidly rising, making the future uncertain. As an audience, we can start replacing the conventional methods of using renewable energy sources. And if not, at least we can spread awareness about this alternative. Be it for generating electricity or providing heat, it has multiple benefits which need to be exploited. So as you can see, in our own school community, a solution with a similar approach was recognized. One of the students at Pathways was able to successfully establish a platform to help the needful slums by providing solar panels. The platform's name is Spread a Light, and just by spreading awareness about this movement, our school community was able to raise up to 8 lakhs in INR through a crowdsourcing platform which is called Fuel a Dream, of which the link is shared in the given document for reference. So on the same note, in our school, we have solar panels installed a couple years ago. And as you can see, we're proud to share it.
Moving on to our fourth solution, monitoring your carbon footprint. Carbon footprints consist of the amount of carbon dioxide released out in the environment as a result of the activities performed by each individual. While already being taught middle school onwards, all of us are well aware of the very basic methods used to combat greenhouse emissions. For example, the 3 R's, saving electricity by turning off the lights whenever or driving efficiently to control the fumes being released. Nevertheless, as responsible citizens, we must always look for ways to minimize our carbon footprint production individually by monitoring our steps from the very start, as Bhavya stated before us as well, to become climate minded. Here we focus on helping ourselves understand how much carbon footprint we're responsible for and how can we reduce that. So the importance of monitoring is to identify and explain excessive energy use, detect instances when consumption is unexpectedly higher or lower than it usually would be, visualize energy consumption trends, probably daily, weekly, monthly, or operationally. Let's say, for example, switching to more sustainable options would be a great deal. Beko is one such example. It's an eco friendly organization that manufactures a range of daily use products such as trash bags, toothbrushes, toilet papers, etc., which are completely sustainable and biodegradable. Switching to such choices encourages a step forward towards a greener and cleaner earth. So, overall, to conclude, energy monitoring is fundamental as it's important for improving energy performance and helps with becoming cost efficient. In Pathways, a student recognized the rising food waste at school and conducted a survey which showed about 40 to 45 kgs of waste per day with about 2,000 consumers. With this inspiration, it further drove the student to create an application which helps in reducing carbon footprint and reducing food waste at the same time. As the process is still under construction in terms of publishing, we can use another website which measures the footprint that we can use. The links to the websites are shared in the document shared below in the chat.
So, what do you think? Which dress would you buy? The above one or the below? I personally would go for the $5 one. Why should I spend extra? This is exactly what fast fashion is, a cheaply produced and priced product following the latest trends. It's a win win. You fit right in with the trends and it does not empty your pockets, which is part of the problem. How many of us care about an authentic branded cloth more than a replica from the street? All of us. Not only do we throw or forget about the clothes bought from the street once the trend is over, but we go and buy more. And from what I know, the more this demand, the greater the supply, which means more energy to produce the clothes. 8% of carbon emissions come from the fashion industry, and it is not as small as it sounds. And it's set to increase to 26% by 2050. 3 out of 5 fast fashion items are thrown away, and every second, a truck full of clothes is finding its way to the landfill, where it's probably getting burned. Fast fashion has been booming the last decade, and this is because in the previous years, consumers were willing to purchase merchandise from major fashion labels to the brand name and the guaranteed quality. However, today consumers desire the same latest fashions but are not willing to pay the same major price tag. In the late 20th century, the um, people embraced cheaply made clothing to follow new trends. Soon, fashion brands had to find ways to keep up with this increasing demand for affordable clothing. And this is how massive textile mills started opening across the world. So, what can we do about it? Well, there are multiple ways that you can reduce, reuse, and recycle clothes. The best way is to decide a day where you want to declutter your closet. Once in 2 or 3 months, you will find clothes you don't want to wear. You can either give them to your brothers or sisters, or you can collect them and donate them at the end of the year. You may also organize a drive in your school or society. This is how everyone can come together and help as a team. If you can't bear to separate from your clothes, you can upcycle them. Today, in the world of social media, there are tons of fashion influencers who show us different ways that we can wear clothes. You can paint them, you can do embroidery, you can cut them and make them into another piece of clothing, like jeans to shorts, or take lots of old t-shirts and make them into a gold old comforter. One of our school students organized a clothing campaign where he collected and donated 840 clothes from around 40 individuals and gave them to underprivileged societies during the March lockdown last year. You can find the Instagram page for the drive in the document shared.
As quoted by Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
So thank you so much for listening, and let's not forget this strategy to that tragedy. Understand, implement, and share. Start before it's too late.
We welcome questions if you may have.
Dr. Norma, would you like to take the first question, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kamal. Thank you for your presentation. I see that it's a very good project. You take all the sides of the problem with the consumption and the solutions and the steps that you're taking. I think that they are great, particularly because you are taking care of clothes, for instance. We had a workshop a few weeks ago, about the fashion, not the fashion industry, how they are using other materials that they are not good, and the way that we are using our clothes or we don't use it, and you are going by steps in a very clear way to tackle climate change. And that is very good because it's complex, but in the same way, you're taking not all sides, but I think that the important ones. My question will be, I'm going to the energies, the renewable energies. You said that you were working in your own school. I know that is not so cheap. How you get the budget that you need to, or you get some companies that they help you in your school to build up this kind of project, because it's not so easy. Like somebody said, yeah, to get solutions against climate change is not cheap, but we need to take it, because even if we don't take it, it will be more expensive to don't act than to act. That we need to convince people who need to put money on. Then my question is about the energies that you are using in your school, because I remind me the project that in Germany, Pop Germany, has in the high school, had in the high school many years ago that we are working with. And yeah, they are very good in that. And I would like you to go further with this kind of project, integral project, a world project for tackle climate change. Can you give me an answer about the funding that you get or you don't get? What are you doing for that, please?
Yeah. Actually, it's a question which we looked for because we were well prepared to answer this question because generating funds is a very big issue these days. And to tackle that scenario was not that hard because as a team, like the student who basically led the initiative was he generated funds because he was able to show the need for funds. More importantly, connect with the community. The significance of a cause was delivered and found to be concerning enough. That was one of the main reasons. And the truth was that a large group of students, like the entire grade 12 and 11, were really enthusiastic about this movement. And it was led through Fuel a Dream, which I shared. So, Fuel a Dream is a platform where one can raise funds based on their like issues. And the support was like very much like we had conducted like workshops were conducted within like within our school community. And it further led the students to get empowered and empower others to understand the need for a solution. So solar panels was the the initiative which was taken by through Spread a Light organization. So for that, up to 8 lakhs were raised, and if I could just share you the image of that thing, would be really nice. So, like the students, I would like to really share the students' outlook. If you could just disable my
Yeah,
sharing.
go ahead.
So in this, as you can see, the Fuel a Dream organization really helped us like perform a campaign. So the goal was 6 lakh and 7,000, but we were able to achieve at least 8 lakh 30,000. These were very like devoted candidates who were successfully able to like launch a campaign in a base of environment where people were like really impacted by the issue. So, like as you can see, there are many students who like the idea of our entire presentation is based upon only one idea simply that how a team can together as a whole create a wider change. If a student independently led the entire thing, it wouldn't be possible obviously. So the contribution of each student raising at least 1,000 to up to at least 80,000 has made such a huge impact. So that's what it's based on.
Thank you so much, Aman. That clearly say that you have a collaboration and you have the strength to do this. And please go ahead. I know that we can do it. We can go further with this, and we can go with you also as a movement. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. Dr. Krish, would you like to take the next question, please?
Thank you, Komal. A very nice presentation with by a very motivated group of kids. I just have one big question. So if you go around like this, where do you see yourself in, like, let's say in another year or in another 5 years? What is your ultimate goal?
So should I take this one? Yeah. Okay. So like our main agenda, rather than being a team, is offering simple solutions. And being optimistic, we think if you're sharing some simple solutions, it is not the time to run away. So in another couple of years, I think if we feel responsible and if we look at the fourth R, which we don't know, which is to rethink and rethink about our actions and what is happening around. If we have that kind of an outlook, I guess in 5 years we'll have a bigger impact that maybe we don't even realize. But it's all about taking action.
Okay, Krish. Thank you for your answer. Maybe someone else can ask. Komal?
Okay, Dr. Suresh, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Komal. Actually, I love the presentation. I love the way you were presenting the work you're doing right now. And I don't have any other words. I don't have any questions because seeing the teamwork you do, it's all satisfying and it's making us more and more proud of what you're doing. So keep up the good work and the team you're having, because always teamwork is they take our professors tell us that when you are as a team you can travel long distances, no, and that is more important than in whatever work you do. So I just feel the teamwork you're doing and I really wanted to appreciate you for that. And also the presentation was complete. No, there is not even a small hole for us to ask questions, no. So it was complete, and they thought you brought via the Power Rangers, no, that is also very good, because many times presentations like this make us boring, no, but the thought of bringing in something innovative in your presentations also was very good, and I really want to appreciate the group and the team for all this work. Congratulations, guys. Keep it
Thank you so much,
going
ma'am. We are
on.
happy to see we're able to communicate our message. Thank you.
Very good.
Congratulations, everyone. Actually, all the three presentations were really good. And I really want to say something. When we were like at your age, we really didn't think about all these things like the carbon footprint, we can have sustainable solutions, sustainable fashion. I don't remember that even I hardly thought about it. I was just recycling, reusing, or maybe reducing, but not beyond that. But you guys have such great minds, such great potential that you can take it way forward. That what we are doing right now at the age of 26 or 27, you are doing it like before us. Like you are just ahead, like more than 10 years ahead of us. So congratulations to all of you. Before opening the panel for everyone, I have a few questions. If you would like to answer, or maybe I'll open the panel first and then I'll ask my question. Okay. So anyone would like to ask any question? Aman, you wanted to ask the question from the second presentation, right?
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
like there was a student who created a website. Like it was a similar approach that in our own school community we had. We had created a application instead of a website. But the idea behind, he wasn't getting a lucid view as to changing his perspective. I think I could have given him a better idea, as I've been making apps myself for a long time. So the idea behind finding a carbon footprint was too vague to consider. And if he was looking into that perspective, he should have considered going into ecological footprint, which would have better helped him like uh, uncover that series of scenarios. So I just wanted to know that like what was his idea, what was the goal of that app, like in his school community? Because if he was measuring electricity and the other things which he showed, which are known as variables in mathematics, so the involvement of many variables brings the idea of broadening the topic, not just carbon footprint but ecological footprint, which is a bigger idea. That would have like cleared up his goal, I guess.
Okay. Team two, would anyone from you would like to answer the question?
I just have a question. Who's the question directed to? I'm not sure.
The sorry, I don't know the name, but it was the person who was sharing the website and the calculator, the calculator mainly. Yeah.
Calculator. Okay, yeah. So I think that ecological footprint. Yeah, I think he's not here, but I will try to answer the question on his behalf. So I think ecological footprint is an important concept, but the reason we didn't go for it is because if you remember, our original aim was to reduce our carbon footprint by 60%. And because that was our end goal, we decided to stick towards that. And once we complete our current goal, we might look at an extension of that as an ecological footprint, but because that does not relate to our goal currently, we haven't taken that into account.
Also, if I could add something, the aim isn't just to reduce our carbon footprint by 60% or whatever. It's also that throughout this journey, a lot of the methods at our school are changing. For example, they've stopped using plastic packaging on things like our uniforms. And this sort of signifies a trend which is happening in our school, which is that a lot more students are becoming climate minded, like we said before. And while we can't really put the exact output of this into numbers, we've seen a noticeable change within ourselves and within the people we interact with. So the actual impact of the actions of our project is far beyond just the carbon footprint. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Any more questions?
I just have a comment. I was like, during the first two presentations, I was like, they've done a very good job and definitely more motivated than before. I really have to say that. Like, we have people working for the environment, so that's a good point to stop at.
Indeed. Okay. Anyone would like to say something?
I actually have a question for the second group who presented the calculator, because I was very fascinated about the fact that we can calculate the CO2 emissions, and I was wondering if we could implement it like here, like nationally. So is the calculator open for like international usage? Is it could it be designed further, like, or edited for other countries to use, for example?
So the calculator which the team is working on right now, that's definitely more of a personalized one than our previous one, which sort of focused more on our school itself. But our eventual intention for our calculator is to upload it online, where it will be much more accurate and much more powerful than any other calculators available on the market. And then from there, anyone can use it, basically. And yeah, so anyone, anywhere can use it.
Like we
in
spoke
whatever
about
country.
our first calculator, so that was directed just to our school. But over the past year, we've learned about how to make it to a general basis. And that is what we are working on right now. And which is why, like Bhavya talked about the routes that we don't know about yet. Now, that's a solution that we don't need for our school because we already know the routes we're taking. But somebody else around the world might want to use, might have other routes. So we are working on that and it will come in the future.
Okay. So wait, adding on to Cherry's question, so is the calculator only works for the electricity and the fuel supplies, or is there any other range it is covering, or it will cover?
I think my internet broke up. Could you repeat the question once?
Yeah, so what I'm asking is that your calculator, would it only cover the electricity and the fuel coverage or for the carbon footprint, or are you having any other equipments or the any other materials which it will cover?
So it will, like Bhavya spoke about, it will cover the first two phases of carbon footprint calculation. So that looks at mainly water, fuel, paper, trees, airports, food, books, paper, stationery, and a few other factors,
Okay.
not being able to remember them off the top of my head, but yes, there will be more factors. We just mentioned the ones that contribute the most, but yes, there will be more factors. And as and when we get to later phase of development, we'll also be looking at the third phase of carbon footprint, which is slightly harder to calculate, but we will be trying to do that.
All right. Adding on to this, I have another question. So you mentioned that so once your school gets open, you're planning to have a different uniform for the people who are working on the environment. So do you know the carbon footprint of the uniform, the clothes which we are going to use for the uniform, and what kind of pollution does it create in the environment, and how much water is required to prepare that material? So for
Yes,
example,
actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, Ved, you can continue.
I just have one point. So that question has come to us multiple times, and we will be considering also using different materials at the source to essentially to essentially counter that. And I think Mihir can explain the rest, but we have taken that into consideration while we're designing the uniform. Mihir, do you want to add on?
So yeah, there are actually several ways of producing clothes without contributing too much to the carbon footprint. Sorry, my bad. Such as recycling clothes or using the fabrics from already existing clothes and things like that. And we are looking to introduce these into our alternate uniform and merchandising ideas. But however, right now, the uniform idea specifically is still sort of in its infancy. We're still trying to design it. We're still trying to design a system in which we could implement this. But once that's done, yes, I think our priority will definitely be to completely settle how we're going to produce these with as little carbon footprint as we can. Yeah.
And also, I'd like to add on to that. So another materials, we've not come to fully establishing the materials we're going to use for the merchandise. However, we have thought of materials like jute, supposing for the accessories as like the bags that we plan to embed in our fashion. So those are some of the renewable materials that we could use to reduce the footprint from that. So that would cover it. But we're still deciding on more. All right. Also, I have another question. So, Dr. Suresh mentioned that are you looking for any presentation of the posters or any kind of such things which you can display in your school, like once your school gets open? So, did you think about any alternative, like because you are again using paper and everything else, and you're polluting the environment, like you're taking something from the environment and then trying to give it back. So, did you think of any alternative?
So if I got
like I said, we're not really focusing on paper-based solutions like posters right now. But if we were to, maybe hang up some posters when we get back to school, the main thing which we would probably do is continue a scheme which already exists in our school. So our school, a year back, it decided to be a bit more climate conscious. And so what we started doing was they implemented basically a recycling or reusing paper things. So we have like double-sided printing, things like that now in our school. And yeah, I think what we would probably do is just reuse some papers which our school still has, because that's the most efficient way of making sure that we don't add to our carbon footprint. And we want to use paper-based, so yeah.
And also adding on to that, there is no action that is zero carbon footprint. I mean, even nature is not zero carbon footprint, but the concept is carbon neutral. So you offset your carbon footprint from other factors. And that's why we're looking at methods that are obviously have less carbon footprint, but also methods to offset our carbon footprint. So a few years back, we planted almost 600 trees in our school. And now we are also looking at planting more when the COVID situation allows us to.
All right. That's a very good thing. I just want to mention, like being a researcher and whatever you do, like please make sure that you have awareness about it, you have exact knowledge about it. So if you are saying that you go on double side printing, then printing also causes like it releases carbon, and also it requires plastic because somewhere these inks or these paints are made of plastics. So make sure that whatever you're going to use in future, you just have the knowledge about it, because it's the most powerful tool. Also, yeah. So with the third group, I have a question. Like rather than a question, I just look for their suggestions. So you mentioned that we can remove threads from our emails which are not for use, and even we can go to our clouds and we can delete all the stuff which is of not use. But what about those things which we have in our external storage? Because generally the organizations like the POC movement and all other organizations, we keep our database like for years. We have our database for plus 10 years or 20 years. So how do we reduce that?
Krish, you could take that one.
Yeah. So there are two ways to this question. One can be reducing, and so like there are stuff which we need at any cost, and we can't delete them just to reduce carbon footprint. So that set aside, the other thing is to just minimize it. For example, I'll just give you an example regarding mails. So if you're constantly sending mails, if rather than if you can directly call a person, that's one way. So like just thinking of small ways that we can reduce. But like if you're an organization, if you have large databases, that's something we can't do anything about it because it's very large. But like at a personal level, what we can do is stated. So that's the first step to really move forward.
I feel like with those large organization, it asks for like different precautions and ways or solutions to manage uh, production in this aspect. But this solution is for those like for our students and people on individual level who can try their best to just minimize their carbon footprint to the most.
Right. But that's a very good point you guys have raised, because earlier, like, it's on a personal level, because like when I only delete my emails or in the spam or from the promotions, then my email box is like it started spamming and it gets slower or something like that. But not like that it is releasing carbon or it is creating some kind of carbon footprint. So yeah, that's a very good thing, and I will start implementing it for sure.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Not from my side. Thank you so much.
Komal, to answer your question, on Outlook, basically, you can save all your emails in your desktop. So if you keep, you save your emails in your desktop or in your hard drive and keep it there, it definitely reduces carbon footprint. That way, you can keep your data as well and remove that from your email box. So that's one way.
All right, Trisha. Thank you. Okay, so I think we are about to the end of this session, and congratulations to everyone for such great projects and the great presentation. We look forward to see you in other sessions as we move forward to another 4 days of the work festival, and we also look forward to seeing you in the future activities of the pop festival and seeing you working like this with such a motivation and enthusiasm. So congratulations again to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank